halfway through the year. Are we gonna crash? Hello everybody, welcome to After Action Report, your numbers recap show for all Schmoedown matches to keep you caught up on all the action. And oh my goodness, do we have some action from this week as we are careening towards our first collision event. The final event match was solidified in this week, but I'm not doing this by myself. I'm Megs, joined as always by Nat. How are you? Good, sir.
I am doing great. I think this was a really good week. So good that I had to be on two shows to talk about it. Can't wait.
Absolutely. Yes, you were on Call Live just last night, so make sure you guys check that out. We had two people that were on the card this week. The first match we're going to talk about this week, Frankie Alvarez and Jessica Sloth were our guests for that week, so be sure and check that out. It was a fun time hanging out with those guys, and so you guys are well aware, we are going to be jumping into the Schmoedown event at the pay-per-view event at the end of the week. So spoilers for the pay-per-view, you guys all know this if you've been watching the show. If you haven't, welcome, and be sure you are hitting the like button, commenting on this video, as well as subscribing to this channel. But without further ado, Nat, let's just get down right into it. The nitty-gritty of the week, I should say, where we had to start off with, again, Frankie Alvarez versus Jessica Sloth, both rookies, both at 1-0 at this point. Coming into round one, we had Alvarez being up by 1, 7-6. Neither of them able to get that perfect round there in the first. Coming into the second round, Alvarez defers to Sloth, who she decides to take 2010s on her first spin, where she's able to come away with 6 out of 8 points, checking down a multiple choice once, and does give up that one multiple choice question for a steal. And it switches over to Alvarez that spins away from Stephen King, but takes Jody Foster on his second spin, where he comes out with 5 out of 8 points, checking down the multiple choice twice, and gives up one of those for a 1-point steal, which gives Jess a gain of 1 point to where they are now tied 13-13 going into the third round, where we have them go back and forth here initially. Jess and Frank getting their 2-pointers in musicals and horror respectively, their 3-pointers, fantasy sci-fi, and Matthew McConaughey, again for Jess and Frank here respectively. Jessica misses her 5-pointer in romance, as well as Frank missing his 5-pointer in biopics, which leaves us tied at 18-18. And for the second time, Jessica Sloth is going to sudden death, where they both miss the first question, and Jess misses on the third question, which does give Frankie Alvarez the win with a final score of 20-19, where Frankie Alvarez answered 15 of 19 questions for 79% accuracy and scored 65% of 31 available points. Jessica Sloth answered 13 of 19 questions for 78% accuracy and scored 61% of 31 available points. So, Jess is 2 out of 2 for going into sudden death. The girl is going to be a master at that round by the end of her very short rookie season so far.
Yeah, definitely a baptism by fire. She's been put through the ringer. And I just want to point out, Danny Costa in the chat says Naz on 2 shows in a row. That's on 3 shows in a row. Check out Twitch Tuesdays tomorrow. Quick plug. And hello to Kelly and Dan and Manny in the chat. Nice to see you here. This match, I'm a big fan of both of these two, which is why I wanted to be on Call Live yesterday. I think Jess is just delightful, and she's on my fantasy team, and she's one of my favorites. And Frankie Alvarez is my hometown homie. I said that wrong. Hometown homie. And so I really didn't know who to pull for. I was slightly pulling for Jess just because fantasy reasons, but these two are really evenly matched. It was such a close match all the way through. I think Billy Belford said this yesterday on Call Live that there wasn't a question that was like particularly easy that you would get upset about them missing it. Like all their misses were pretty understandable. So I think it was a very, very good match. I think Jess picked did the right thing by picking 2010s, sticking with 2010s in round 2. I think that's a good decade for her. She just got tripped up by that young adult question. I think that was not really a tricky question, but it's tricky in the sense that its answer is really obvious, where you wouldn't expect it to be really obvious. So just those tiny mistakes is what could have sent this match like a different way. I mean, it's a really good match. I am very much looking forward to seeing Frankie versus Rick Radis. I think that should be a good match and a very good clash of personalities. I think this match, these two were like very, very much. I think Jessica Sloth is very much a different person than Rick Radis. Let's just put it that way. So
yes,
he's gonna have to deal with something else in his upcoming match. And I'm interested to see who Jess plays. We asked her who she wanted to play, but I mean, there's so many options right now. Like, I'm very interested in seeing her next opponent.
Absolutely. And she's relatively young, just age-wise for a player. Yeah. So I think she has, if she decides to stick with it, she has a lot of room to grow inside this league, as well as Frank as well. He is definitely someone I see sticking around. His match against Ravs is going to be a treat to watch. Guys, if you're in the chat and you want to throw a donation question in, be sure to use the Streamlabs link that I pinned up there at the top of the video. Otherwise, you can just throw it here in the chat and we'll try and get to them as we go along. But definitely, this was I think, underrated match from the standpoint of, it wasn't super high scoring, but they were close. They were very closely matched. Like you were saying earlier, Nat, the questions were not necessarily easy. They were not missing obvious questions. They've definitely gotten a good handle on how they want to play the game as individual competitors, and they're growing in their own strategy. And Jess is definitely somebody that, as May is saying, she's so quiet, but she's like a silent assassin. She's going to come in and she's going to know her stuff, and you're not necessarily going to see that coming.
I would highly recommend watching Call Live yesterday. I know I'm plugging our own shows, but I think we brought up some really good points that Jess, you can't really tell when she doesn't know a question. Like, her face is just the same. She's very stoic in that way. So she has a really good poker face. And also, Frankie Alvarez brought it up that I think he's done a really good job hiding his weaknesses and his strengths. Like, he did very well in Jodie Foster, which I would not have expected him to. And even in his last match, like, he hasn't really shown very obvious weaknesses, you know? So I think that could be something very much to his benefit in the future.
Absolutely. I think both of these guys have, again, great future in the league, and super excited to see what comes up for them next. But let's go ahead and shimmy on over to our next match of the week, which was the Tyrant Lieberman against Josh Horowitz. Again, we've got another couple batches of 1-1, 1-0 rookies, trying to see who's going to get that first L on their record. Coming into the first round, Josh is up by 1, 8-7. He does miss the bonus question, so he is not able to get the full 9 there in that first round. Coming into the second round, Horowitz decides to spin first. He spins away from video game movies, ends up on opponent's choice, and as you would expect someone to do, he's given video game movies as his slice. And wouldn't you know it, Josh sweeps the round for the full 8 out of 8. It bounces over to Ty Lieberman, who also spins opponent's choice. He is given young adult novel adaptations, which he is able to get 6 out of 8, where he checks on the multiple choice twice, but does not give away any steal opportunities. So Horowitz gains another 2 points to now be up by 3, 16-13, going into our third and final round, where we have another back and forth battle. Ty and Josh both get their 2-pointers in disaster films and new releases respectively, 3-pointers in Matthew McConaughey and 1990s, and then also both of them hitting their 5-pointers, where Lieberman hits his in Modern Classics, and Josh hits a 5-pointer in Action and Adventure, which does give Josh Horowitz the win with a final score of 26-23, where Ty Lieberman answered 14 of 15 questions for 93% accuracy, scored 85% of 27 available points, and Josh answered 15 of 16 questions for 94% accuracy and scored 96% of 27 available points. So, considering we had double opponent's choice, neither of them fell into the traps that opponent's choice gets into. Ty was definitely playing it safe, checking on a multiple choice twice in those answers, but it paid off for him because he was able to get them on multiple choice and limited the amount of points that Josh would be able to steal off of him. But neither of these guys gave up steals in opponent's choice, which ideally you don't want your opponent to run the category the way Josh did. But also, I think given what were the options on the wheel, I think it was a logical choice for them to give this to him because he spun away from it. But Josh keeps surprising me. He is learning the game very quickly. His strategy is getting better. He's someone that's silently sneaking up in my estimations of top rookies for this year.
Yeah. When Josh debuted, I had him pegged as a kind of like a mid-tier competitor. And boy, was I wrong, because these are not mid-tier competitor numbers. Like, I think that he really impressed me this match. Like, both of them did. I think that we usually see matches go down to the third round, and that kind of decides the match. But this one kind of came down to the first and second. I think that it's very impressive that Josh overcame not only the opponent's choice, but also video game movies. Like, to be good at that, you deserve to win. And I think that he did so well in that regard. I think that Lieberman didn't really do much wrong. He missed one question in round number 1, and he checked down a multiple choice twice. And other than that, he went perfect. So it was a very strong showing. I had it in my mind that the Tyrant was going to win because he very much impressed me in his first match. But Josh Horowitz came to play, so very, very impressed.
Absolutely. Yeah, and absolutely no slide on Tyler Lieberman. He was very impressive in his first match, and he continues to be a strong competitor. Why the adaptations typically is not a strong suit for a lot of players. So I'm not too surprised that he had to do some check on a multiple choice there. But again, that's him playing the game smart, not swinging for the fences when he felt because he was behind so much, he played it safe, kept it within a reasonable amount, and all it would have taken was Josh to miss his 5-pointer and Ty would have won. And you never really know what happens when you get down to those 5-point questions there in that third round. So he played it smart. He will, I think, continue to improve and do well. He is still fitting in extremely well with the Finstock Exchange. Those interactions are always very fun to watch. But yes, other than that, I think this was still a strong showing for both competitors, but ultimately Josh did come away from the win there and is very much learning from some of the best. Using the stall tactic there was a nice touch. I much appreciated that. So,
Dylan, get out of here.
Dylan. Oh, goodness gracious.
I just want to say, you brought up a very good point that I think it was very smart for him to check out a multiple choice. Sometimes you have to bank on your opponent missing the 5 because the 5 can be anything. It can, I feel like it's a smart play when you're down to bet on your opponent missing the 5 and just play it safe and check down a multiple choice. But when your opponent doesn't miss, then there's really not much you can do.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I should address this Dylan fantasy update question. I keep forgetting, and also I'm in last place. You happy, Dylan? You happy? Okay. I'm not gonna get into it.
I will say we are just gonna move on into our next match, which was for us reactors kind of fun to watch because it was Amara Moses against Moose Haas, another match for the Exchange. However, due to some technical difficulties, this match did not have sound. So we were blessed with the opportunity to watch Christian and Mark Ellis do commentary and live reaction to a match that they were watching with no sound. So it was a very interesting one to watch. And as I said earlier, we are on a collision course to the collision. This was the last match to determine who is going to face off against Saul for the number one contender match in IG. So this is a number one contender qualifying match. So getting into how this one came down, they were both tied at 11 coming out of that first round, both of them going perfect plus the bonus. Amaru decides to defer over to Moose Haas, and they spin away from TMNT and end up taking Middle Earth, where Haas ends up coming away with 4 out of 10 available points, checking on the multiple choice once, misses 2 2-point questions, and the multiple choice question, giving up 1 2-point and multiple choice option steals. So to recap that, Amaru was able to steal 1 of the 2-point misses and the multiple choice miss, but did not answer the 2-point question, the second 2-point question there in that first question for the steal. So no one got the points there. And coming over to Amaru's spin, he spins away from Mixed Bag and ends up taking Fantasy Sci-Fi, where he comes away with 6 out of 10 points, where he checked down a multiple choice 3 times and only gives up 1 of those checkdowns for 1-point steal. So at the end of all that, we end up seeing Amaru gaining 4 points to now be up by 4, 20-16, going into the third and final round, where we see Moose Haas answer his 2-pointer and his 3-pointer in Who Said It and Batman, respectively. Comes back over to Amaru, who hits his 2-pointer in Star Wars, forcing Moose to answer his 5-pointer in Planet of the Apes. And Amaru comes back and hits a 3-pointer in Star Trek and a 5-pointer in Indiana Jones, which gives Amaru Moses the win with a final score of 30-26, where Amaru Moses answered 20 of 22 questions for 91% accuracy and scored 83% of 36 available points. Moose Haas answered 17 of 20 questions for 85% accuracy and scored 81% of 32 available points. So doing analysis on this game was a little more interesting because we had no sound to go off of. So we were just basing everything off of, we were hearing the dings of whether the got answer correct or incorrect, and watching the point scores, you could tell what was going on. So it was hard to tell how Haas was answering those Star Wars questions, but it is very tough to end up giving 2-point steals away, especially in this type of match. Nat, did you have any comments on kind of what we saw during this whole match?
This is a really interesting match to talk about because, like you said, there's no sound, so it's very hard to pick apart. I really, as much as I like Christian and Mark talking over it, I really would have liked to have heard Moses and Haas talk to each other. I think Haas is such an interesting character, and I would love to see more of him. And Moses is such a likable guy that I think those two is like the classic face versus heel match. I would have really liked to have heard it. This is another match that didn't go the way I predicted it to, just based off their first matches. I thought Haas was more impressive, but I'm very impressed with Moses in this match. I think Amaru did what he had to do. I think that this match really hurt Moose because he kind of exposed a weakness of himself in Middle Earth. I think his next competitors are gonna capitalize on that. So if I were Moose, I would study up on Middle Earth so much to patch up that weakness. I'm very impressed by Amaru.
Absolutely. And yes, I misspoke. For some reason I said didn't hear his Star Wars answers. It was Middle Earth. I wasn't looking at my notes. But yes, it is very interesting to see a IG competitor show something that appears to maybe be that strong of a weakness inside of this division. So something definitely for him to look into patching up as far as a whole there in the study habits there. But again, I think this was something that I'm not too surprised by. If you pay attention to Amaru Moses' post-interview after his first match, he was very disappointed in how he performed. He knew that he was much better than that. And so now he came in here and he proved that. So putting up some 90% accuracy, 83 potential points earned. So now we're going to get to see Amaru Moses, who has a little bit of a laid-back approach. He definitely is very dedicated in his study, and he knows the game really well. And he's going to be end up facing Saul, who is one of the most intense IG competitors I have seen in a very long time. So that is
going to be. I can't wait for that.
And that one's going to be in studio, which is going to be even more amazing.
Yes. I'm really invested in Amaru's journey because he definitely has a chip on his shoulder. He was drafted way early. People have called him overhyped based off his first match, and he wants to prove them wrong. And I think he's well on his way. A victory over Saul would certainly silence the doubters. So I can't wait for that match. In studio, it's going to be insane.
Absolutely. And I do want to bring up that we're getting a little bit of a callback to a little show that a couple of us used to do. AAA Live, Dylan coming in with the facts of Middle-earth being a long-term weakness of current IG champion Mike Kalinowski.
I'm not saying that.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if Middle-earth is something that he's brushed up on.
I'm not going to say the three of us are responsible for him being a single Interkingdom champion, but I'm going to say that we certainly didn't hurt his chances. So,
absolutely. I am just coming back over here. Thank you so much to Ben Rayner for a very generous $14 Streamlabs donation here. Hey guys, the Amaru match was trippy to watch with that voiceover, but it was fun. Also about the pay-per-view, I did hear 3 movies in that 5-pointer, so in my opinion, it was a solid and well-executed challenge in my opinion. Funny that you mentioned that because that is the next match that we are going to be talking about. If you have not seen the pay-per-view match, be forewarned. We're going to go talking about that in 3, 2, 1. Battlefield pay-per-view, #1 contender, Ben the Boss Bateman against big-time Ethan Irwin. The first time that these two have faced each other at all. They've never faced in teams. They have not faced in singles. So things got very interesting from the get-go. Starting off here in the first round, they both go perfect, but Irwin is able to get the bonus question, which gets him up by 1, 9-8, coming out of the first round here. Dylan, I gave them fair warning. Don't
just
give me
ignore
that.
Dylan. He's a troll. Just don't feed him. Just move on.
Whatever. Anyways, in round 2, Irwin is ahead, so he decides to spin first. He spins away from Nicole Kidman and ends up taking Nicole Kidman after it spins on her for a second time, where he comes out with 7 out of 8 points. He checks down the multiple choice once, but does not give away any steals. Bateman spins away from spy movies on his first spin and ends up taking Tyler Perry, where he sweeps around for the full 8 out of 8, and which gives Bateman a gain of 1 point to put them now tied 16-16 going into the final round, where we have another back and forth here where Irwin and Bateman hit their 2-pointers in Crime and Biopics respectively, 3-pointers in 1980s and Leonardo DiCaprio respectively, and then we have the 5-pointers in 2010s. Irwin hits his, and Bateman hitting a 5-pointer in Directors after a challenge and after a re-asking of the question. We'll talk about that later. But regardless of that, this now puts them tied 26-26 to once again go into sudden death, where they both miss the first question, but Bateman does miss the second question as well, which gives Irwin the win with a final score of 27-26, where Ben Bateman answered 15 of 18 questions for 83% accuracy, scored 90% of 29 available points, and Ethan Irwin answered 17 of 18 questions for 94% accuracy and scored 93% of 29 available points. Mm-hmm. So a very close game. Back and forth a little bit with the 1 point differences, back and forth, putting them tied. When we hit that director's challenge question, I felt the match go from 0 to 60 in tension faster than Dom's car in Fast and Furious movies. Oh my word, did that get intense in a hurry. Nat, you and I were talking a little bit about the challenge before we started. I'm not going to get too big onto kind of our thoughts of the challenge in particular, but regardless, Adam Witt made a great plea for this challenge, and it was ultimately upheld to where Bateman was given a second director's question for the 5 pointers. And we end up going into sudden death, which Erwin is able to pull it out. So the idea that ultimately, if you don't agree with the challenge, you don't think Bateman should have gotten it, well, he ends up still losing the match in sudden death. So you can be happy. But regardless of that, we are now going to see Big Time Erwin face up against Dan Murrell for the 4th time. Not often does this happen. A little bit about their history. Before I do that, I'm going to grab this super chat here from Jose Montava. Always great to see you in the chat. Despite Ben missing his bonus question, I wasn't worried, since there was always a possibility that Ethan could miss his second round questions or at least check down to 1. Overall, Ben played his best. Mm-hmm. I agree. Ben's been playing very well this past season. He has shown a lot of improvements in certain areas, and just his overall mannerisms and the way he's playing, the way he approaches the game, continues to improve. He is somebody that you can always pretty much guarantee he's going to do something different every season. So always definitely par for the course there. And of course, Kelly, #family, Fast and Furious references are abounding, especially this time of year. I had to do it. It was too easy of a reference to make.
Right there.
But as far as Ethan and Dan Murrell's history, we end up seeing that Erwin defeated Murrell in the semifinal of the tournaments in 2018. Then you saw Murrell win back his title off Ethan for the 3rd time to be champion for the 3rd time in 2019. And then we see Murrell successfully defends against Erwin in 2020. So if they match up again later on this month, maybe into August, we're not sure exactly when, or we did see that there was a championship match scheduled for later on in this month. They have faced each other every year that Erwin has been in the league. Every year they faced off once. Mm-hmm. I do not believe they have faced each other in teams. I may be wrong. I might be forgetting one match, but I think they have only faced each other in singles.
I don't think they faced each other in teams.
I'm not recalling. I am not recalling the Founding Fathers ever faced off. I know they didn't face off against the
Time Machine.
Time Machine. Nope, they never did, and they wouldn't have faced off the Erwin and Guy team up was only one match.
Yeah.
And they never faced each other then. So yeah, right. They have only faced in singles, but they have faced each other once a year.
Yeah.
On the dot.
Such a tradition.
It is a tradition for them to face off every year. I think that is just, it's going to have to become a tradition because they've said it. This is now going to be the 4th year in a row. Which when I discovered that, I was looking back through, I'm like, oh yeah. At some point during every season since Erwin's been in the league, they have faced off against each other. So
yes,
it's a pretty cool thing to see. But anyway, guys, that is going to be all of our matches that we saw this week. Kind of hit a middling week in match. We had more than 3, which is a light week, but not the full 5 that is a typical full week for us. So it was kind of nice to get to see another pay-per-view. Super excited for all the different matches that we have coming up this week. They did release the slate for the entire month of July, which is exciting. The culmination of this month being the Collider Collision, or just the Collision. It's not a Collider. I'm watching old matches, so that's on my head. But we will see the collision, and we now know the full slate of matches. Be sure to check that out, as well as there was a Patreon match dropped today against Ben Goddard and why is the name just escaping me?
King Kong, Jeffrey Kong.
King Kong, yes. I knew it was one of the Finstock rookies. I couldn't remember which one. There's a lot of them, guys.
There's a lot of them.
A lot of matches, a lot of rookies. But that has been the name of the game this year, and it has been amazing so far. That's going to be it for this week's episode. Be sure to come back next week, Mondays, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. Nat, you already mentioned that we've got Twitch Tuesdays coming up tomorrow. Yes. All of our socials are down in the description of this video. If you are listening on audio, be sure that you are subscribed so you can know what's going on, as well as being subscribed to this channel so that every time we go live with different videos, whether it's Call Live, whether it's our next episode of No Chill, which is coming up next month, or anything else that we decide to put up here on this channel, be sure that you are throwing a like, throw a comment on this video, and be subscribed, as I said earlier. Nat, anything else that you want to plug before we head out of here?
Speaking of family, go check out Late to the Party's F9 review. I have cool friends. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Twitch Tuesdays. We're on Twitch Tuesdays tomorrow at 6 Pacific. And also, check out Call Live yesterday if you missed it. It was a good episode. That's pretty much it.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we are going to be heading out of here for the entire Call to Action crew and the entire team here. I'm Megs. This has been After Action Report, signing off.